This is a sneak preview of the upcoming revamp of the D&D 5e macros plugin. The revamp will optimize the sequencing process, and it will offer 4 modes of rolling. First mode will be fully manual. When a roll is needed, it will prompt the user to make that roll. The correct dice will be loaded for the user, but the roll is actually done by the player himself or herself, after which the sequence continues. The second mode is very similar to the first, but in some cases, rolling on the board itself is not ideal if the board is not even or if there's a lot of water. So the system will automatically move the camera off to the side where there will be a rolling surface. The player can make a roll there, and then the camera will be moved back to the same position and orientation before the roll, and the sequence will continue. The third method of rolling is automatic dice rolls with dice cam, which is what I'm going to be demonstrating in a moment. It basically makes automatic rolls for you, but it actually uses TaleSpire dice to roll, and there's a dice cam that will show those rolls. And the very last rolling method is what was in the plugin to this point, which is randomly generated numbers, which is the fastest way to roll, but is not very interactive. It should be noted that at the moment I haven't put in the extra randomness for my dice rolls, so the dice rolls right now are kind of lopsided, but before the solution is released, I will be adding the extra randomness to keep those rolls random. Okay, so let's start off. I'm currently showing the player view. I'm going to select on my character here to make my attack with. I will then right-click the goblin, select attacks, and attack him with a short sword. We can see that it declares the attack. There is our dice cam showing the attack. A 19 is a hit, and we roll our damage here. And what we get here is this chat here is a play-by-play of the action, in case you missed it, but it is geared to the player's information. The GM will have a very similar chat, but with slightly different information. So for the player view, we here see that John targeted the goblin. We get John's attack here with the number because, well, John is a player, so that information is known. We got, this was the first attack that missed that I did before this. So here the goblin evaded. For our attack here, John targeted the goblin. John made his attack with a short sword for a 19. We can also see here in fine print the breakdown of that roll if you're interested. So it was a d20 plus 5, and in this case the d20 was a 14, plus 5 gets our 19. So this information is known to the player, so it is shown. Here we see that that was a successful hit on the goblin. We see that John has inflicted 10 points of damage, and the breakdown of that is 10 points piercing by his weapon. And we see the result that the goblin takes some damage. For the player, the result here is either takes no damage, takes some damage, or takes the damage. So takes some damage here is indicating that the goblin has some kind of immunity or resistance and did not take the full damage that John did, but it gives us no information about what that might be. If it's a if we do the same sequence as a GM, we will see that the chat provides different messages for the GM with more information. So I can make an attack again. That's an attack. There's our dice cam. That was a miss. Okay, that was not very informative. But we can see here that, for example, here, Goblin evades. gave us additional information that it was a attack 9 versus an AC of 10 for the goblin. So as a player, that information wasn't provided. As a GM, it was. Let's try that again. So this time we got a hit. So here we can see that as a GM, there was John's attack, which we had last time. This time, though, we get Goblin takes some of the damage, and we see a breakdown of that. So the Goblin is taking only 4 points of damage. Here it tells us that that was 4 points of piercing damage from weapon, and it tells us that the reason why it's less damage is because the Goblin had resistance to piercing. We also get a final health of the Goblin, so that the GM doesn't need to look it up afterwards. As before, the current module supports damage immunity and damage resistance, and it also supports multiple damage types. So for example here, I can demonstrate that by doing a attack. I have here a short sword with sneak damage. Right now I set the sneak damage to be very high because it will demonstrate another feature that when multiple or when many dice are rolled, it will zoom the camera out a little bit in hopes of being able to capture all of the dice as opposed to the close-in views for small dice numbers. So now we saw our breakdown, and now it was John did 31 damage, 9 points slashing, 22 sneak, which is also slashing, and the Goblin takes the full amount of that because this time it's slashing damage, not piercing damage, which the Goblin is not immune to. If the Goblin was immune to, if this was a breakdown for example, slashing and piercing, then the Goblin would have been would have reduced one of those, not necessarily both of those, and it takes all that into consideration. So that's it for the sneak preview. The implementation is well underway, so I hope to have it out very soon.